And welcome to the Cult Cinema Circle podcast. My name is Jesse, and I'll be your host. So today we're going to be recapping what I watched in the month of September. So September was actually a pretty good month in terms of watching. You know, I watched a few different, horror things. I didn't really watch a whole lot of TV that I remember. Can't really remember watching anything like that. But, you know, I got some fun things to talk about, and let's just move on. So to start off the month, I had a little double feature on the first. I watched Sorority Row from 2009 because I did cover it on the show. So Sorority Row is, if you don't know, when 5 sorority girls inadvertently cause the murder of one of their sisters in a prank. They agree to keep the matter to themselves, and they never speak of it again, so they can get on with their lives. However, after graduation, a mysterious killer goes after the 5 of them because they know their secret and all that. And so I said in my review on Letterboxd that this movie is actually fairly decent. I gave it a 4 personally. I would give it like 3.5 or a 4. I think it's 2000s as hell, but I love a group of bad bitches being bad bitches, and it's kind of like that. You know, listen to the episode I did with Pickens on it, but I mean, yeah, this movie is, if anything, it's entertaining, you know, that's cool. I mean, granted, it might not be the best film in the world, but I mean, I like entertainment really over anything, so I'm down for that. But yeah, started off with Sorority Row, and in the meantime, too, I also watched The House on Sorority Row, which is what Sorority Row 2009 is based off. So same plot, really. After a seemingly innocent prank goes horribly wrong, a group of sorority sisters are stalked and murdered one by one in their sorority house while they're throwing a party to celebrate the graduation. As I stated before in the episode, because we did talk about this movie was actually shot in Pikesville, Maryland, which is kind of cool because I used to literally work over near there. So that's kind of interesting. But also, with that, you know, it was directed by first-time director Mark Rossman, who's went on to have a career of his own and all of that. It was shot by the cinematographer that did all sorts of different movies, and you know, who's also from Baltimore. So I thought that was really cool. But yeah, I watched this to compare it to the remake, and it's actually pretty good for a low-budget 80s slasher film, you know, and I'm down for that and into it. Yeah, so House on Sorority Row, I gave it like a 3.5. By no means am I saying I don't think I would necessarily, like I said, I think I give it a 3.5. I gave Sorority Row a 4, but like they're kind of on the same little playing field for me, if anything. I don't think one is worse than the other. I think they both have their merits, if anything. So there you go. Then on the 2nd of the month, I had a little kind of double feature as well. But because on Peacock was doing it this month, because they had all sorts of things that were on the docket, but I decided to finally watch, because it was the only one I hadn't watched. I watched The Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1995. That's right, it's the one with Renee Zellweger and Matthew McConaughey. So this movie, pretty much Leatherface is back for more prom night gore. This time he's joined by his bloodthirsty family. 4 stranded yet carefree teens are taken in by a backwoods family, clueless of their host family's grisly habits, and the terrified youths, including Sweet Jenny, played by a kind of unknown Renee Zellweger, try to escape from Leatherface and his crazed clan, including the bionic Vilmer, played by Matthew McConaughey. So I said in my review this was batshit crazy, but I thought it was a decent horror film. I gave it a 4. I mean, people hate this film. And listen, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies are a mixed bag altogether, okay? Listen. However, I think this, well, you'll hear about it at some point. But I will say, because I will be doing something with Texas Chainsaw Massacre in upcoming months. But yeah, so I'm just glad I finally get to watch this, because it was the only one I hadn't seen yet. So now I've finished that franchise. which is nice. And then also on Peacock, fun enough, I decided to watch Psycho from 1960. I mean, goddamn, do I really have to go over what this movie's about? But I mean, pretty much, Marion Crane goes on the lam with a wad of cash that she stole from her boss, and she hopes of starting a new life. She ends up at the Base Motel, where Norman Bates, played by Anthony Perkins, cares for his housebound mother. The place seems quirky but fine until Marion decides to take a shower. That's literally part of the summary on Letterboxd, which I think is funny. I mean, it's directed by Alfred Hitchcock. I said this movie looks great in 4K because it was in 4K on Peacock. And yes, the 1998 Psycho is also on there as well. I'll talk about another Psycho movie in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I gave this a 4.5. I mean, this movie, it's a classic, obviously. Maybe not for everyone. Maybe some people don't always like it. But I mean, come on. Like, you have to give props where props are due, you know what I mean? And yeah, I thought Psycho was good, and of course I had to watch it again. Of course, I'd seen it before, but yes, I had decided to do that. Then the next day, I decided to watch something I had heard about, and so I finally got to see it because it was on Pluto, and it also came on Prime, funny enough too. But Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse from 2015. Now, the reason I was aware of this movie was because technically one of the writers of it is Lona Williams, who did Drop Dead Gorgeous and Sugar and Spice and all that. And so I was like, all right, cool, let me watch this, I guess. So if you don't know, this movie is about 3 scouts and lifelong friends join forces with one badass cocktail waitress to become one of the world's most unlikely team of heroes. When their peaceful town is ravaged by a zombie invasion, they'll fight for the badge of a lifetime and put their scouting skills to the test to save mankind from the undead. Now, I will say, I mean, I like so Denise is the cocktail waitress that they mention. I like the outfit that Denise has on. I'm a sucker for a white tank top and a shorts. So of course, like I'm into that. It's the final girl fit, if you will. Also, the amount of Dolly Parton merch that the scout leader has is kind of incredible, though, and goals, because this guy in the movie, the scout leader, he is kind of, he's not explicitly queer, but it's kind of implied, and he has all this Dolly Parton merch at his house. Spoiler alert, also he becomes a zombie, but anyway, yeah, love that. Drew Droege, hey Drew Droege, who we follow each other on Instagram now, and I did a little story about me watching it, and I thought it was fun he was in there. Him as a zombie in the movie, playing like singing a Britney Spears song is kind of fun. That's cool. And so for me, this movie kind of missed the mark for me, but I guess it was fun for a one-time watch, I guess. I gave this a 2.5. It wasn't really my thing. I mean, it's from 2015. Like, I mean, I don't know. Just that movie wasn't really all that good to me, I think. It also had like 3 different writers, so I think the tone was kind of all over the place, I guess, it seems like. But it is Christopher Landon. We love Christopher Landon here, gay man, son of Michael Landon, I mean, like, how could you not stand? But like, overall, I didn't love the movie necessarily. But it's not like the worst in the world, I guess. It's just, it's not for everyone. Also, it was produced, partly produced by one of the guys, the main guy, who I think actually directed She's the Man, funny enough. And also, he was the executive producer on Reefer Madness, the musical, which is super fun. He also directed Heather's the Musical, the little movie that they did of it. So that's kind of fun. Anyway, but yeah, so that is that for Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse. Then the next day after that, I decided to do a little something, and I decided to watch, because this was also around the time of Labor Day, so I guess I had a day off or so. Anyway, but I decided to do another little double feature and finish off another series that I had, been meaning to finish. I did Curse of Chucky and Cult of Chucky. So I watched those on the same day because they were also on Peacock. Yeah, I think they were on Peacock. It was either that or they were on Prime or something. I feel like they come on Peacock every so often, but I think it was actually on Prime. Never mind. But you can find some of the Child's Play things on Peacock, though, which is cool. And also the series Chucky. Curse of Chucky is from 2013. This is after this is 2013, so this is kind of back to form after Seed of Chucky. After the passing of her mother, Nika, who's played by Fiona Dourif. She's a young woman in a wheelchair. She's forced to deal with her sister, her brother-in-law, her niece, and their nanny as they say goodbye to her mother. But when people start turning up dead, Nika discovers the culprit might be a strange doll that she received a couple days before. I didn't have anything to say about this. I gave it a 3 and a little heart. I think this movie is pretty good. Yeah, I mean, like, it's another Child's Play movie, but it kind of went back to form, if you will. You know, it wasn't as funny, maybe, as some of the other Child's Play movies have been, but I did enjoy it. You know, I thought it was fun. You know, Fiona Dourif is a great actress, I think. And I thought she did good in this role. She definitely does great in Cult, but yeah, we'll get to Cult. Yeah, so let's talk about that one. So Cult's Chucky is from 2017, and so that was actually directed by Don Mancini, who's the creator of Chucky. She is confined to an asylum for the clinically insane. Nika is, and so she is convinced that she, not Chucky, actually murdered her entire family back in Curse of Chucky. But when the psychiatrist introduces a new therapeutic good guy doll with a familiar face, a string of grisly new murders lead Nika to wonder if she isn't crazy after all. Again, I gave it a 3. I liked it just as much as Curse of Chucky. I didn't dislike one more than the other. I feel like the only one I really didn't like was just Child's Play 3. Everything else I thought was pretty all right, I like to be honest. So, but yeah, I mean, this one definitely has a look to it. You know, it definitely has that kind of like very clinical, kind of blue tinty feel, if you will. But I mean, it's fun. The way that Chucky looks, you know, it's questionable every so often with some of these movies. But, you know, what are you going to do? But I did want to get back on those, and I wanted to be able to actually talk about those. And now I'm caught up on Child's Play, so that's another franchise I was able to finish. And then also, I can now start watching Chucky again, because I only finished a few of those episodes. So, and then the 3rd season's coming out, but I'm not that worried about like catching up on it right now, because it'll always be there. I think Child's Play is definitely, if anything, it's one of the most consistent horror franchises out there, and I mean, it's one that I tend to like. I actually think it has a pretty consistent sort of oeuvre, if you will. So that's cool. Anyway, back to Psycho, though. The next day, I decided to watch Psycho 2 from 1983 because it was on Peacock, of course. Actually, pretty much all the Psycho movies are on Peacock. So this is after years of treatment at a mental institution for the criminally insane. Serial killer Norman Bates, again played by Anthony Perkins, is finally released and deciding to move back to his long dead mother's infamous old house. He finds himself tormented by her demands and begins to question his own sanity. This one I gave a 4, and I give it a little heart. I really liked this movie. It has Vera Miles in it. It has Meg Tilly in it. Of course, Anthony Perkins is back. I mean, it's a pretty lit cast, you know, and I think it does a really good job at being a continuation of this story. Maybe it's not for every single person, perhaps, and it gets a little weird here and there, but you know what? I really did enjoy myself with it, and you know, I haven't finished the 3rd one. That one has Tina from that one has Tina from Mommy Dearest when she's older. Diana Scarwood. Also, she was in Party Monster. But yeah, no, she's in that movie. So I haven't seen that one. Again, it's on Peacock every so often, so I'll get around to it. But yeah, Psycho, I mean, some people really go up for Psycho in the series, perhaps. Or they're just like, yeah, it starts to, you know, go off after a while. But yeah, I did enjoy this one. I thought Meg Tilly did a great job. I think Vera Miles did a good job. So I was very interested. Anyway, the next day, I decided to watch a little something that I'm covering on the show as of this recording next week, which means it's already done. But anyway, so I watched Trick or Treat from 2007 or 2009, depending on what you do, in terms of release. But Trick or Treat, if you don't already know, it's a anthology horror movie, has 4 interwoven stories that occur on Halloween. One is about these kids who discovered old urban legend of their town. There's a pack of girls who decide to go to a party in the middle of the woods. And then there's this old guy who hates Halloween, who is accosted by this little weird trick-or-treater. And yeah, I mean, God, Trick or Treat, you'll hear about it in my episode, but I mean, I love this movie so much. I gave it a 4 and a heart. I mean, God, I own it now. I have the Blu-ray of it because I never owned it before, so I thought, why not just get the Blu-ray of it? I don't think any of these other movies I own on physical media, but this one I actually got this month, and I was like, oh, okay, great. So yeah, I mean, I love Trick or Treat so much. There's other people who love Trick or Treat as well. Sam is just the cutest villain ever, and I love him. But yeah, that's what I decided to watch with that. And again, you'll hear more about it on my episode, but yeah, that's what I did with that. And I'm a horror anthology girly. I like them for the most part, even if they're maybe not so good. I'll give them a chance at least. I like having different short stories. Will VHS 85 be good? I don't know, but damn it, I've watched all the other ones, and so I'm gonna watch it in October. Anyway, so moving on, I then watched a little movie from 1991 called Ernest Scared Stupid, which has Jim Varney in it. I am going to cover this on the show as well, and you'll see that as well. And I had a nice guest on. But yeah, so well-intentioned, eternally bumbling Ernest P. Worrell. He accidentally releases an evil demon from its sacred tomb, and now he has to go and try and save the townspeople and the kids from utter destruction, pretty much, that he sort of caused. But it has Eartha Kitt in it. It has Jim Varney in it. I mean, this is such a fun little movie. I gave it a 3.5 and a star. I really like Ernest Scared Stupid. Funny enough, I watched it on YouTube, and I also rewatched it as well, because I watched it on YouTube at first, and then it actually came on YouTube for free, the HD version, which is awesome, because you can find it on YouTube for free, but it actually did come up with free with ads as well. And that's the better quality version you can watch. So, but I really liked this movie. I maybe would own it, perhaps. I don't know. It's one of the most accessible Ernest movies. I haven't seen the other ones, but from what I gather, it seems like it's the most kind of accessible one, which is good. And it's the spooky one, so who wouldn't love it? Anyway, so then after that, though, because this month, Criterion Channel, which I do subscribe to, it's a nice little $10 to throw at them every so often. They did High School Horror as part of their lineup, at least last month it was, because you're hearing this in October, but I'm recording it the day before. Anyway, so as part of that, they had The Craft, they had Suspiria, which I think might still be on there, funny enough, The Faculty, they had a bunch of different things, right? And so, of course, I was like, oh, wait a minute, and if you go on Criterion Channel now, you will see that they have 90s horror, and they got some good shit on there, too. They have Demon Knight, Tales from the Crypt presents Demon Knight, which is such a good movie, and you need to go watch it, and you'll probably hear about it, me talking about it in October, because I am going to watch it at some point. But anyway, but yeah, it has some good stuff. Frankenhooker's on there, so go watch Frankenhooker, and then go listen to my episode about it. But 90s horror is gonna be lit. And also, the month after in November, they're gonna have Body Snatchers with Meg Tilly, funny enough, and also they're gonna have that in another movie. I don't remember. Oh my god, I wish I could remember. I know Body Snatchers is gonna be on there, and then they have Ravenous on there, which I'm planning on watching, and then also in December they're gonna have Event Horizon on there, which is gonna be fun. So yeah, check out Criterion Channel if they're not sponsoring me or anything, but if you like movies and you like those kinds of things, fucking watch it, dude. Go ahead. Anyway, back to what I was going to talk about with that. As part of high school horror, they have a movie on there called Massacre at Central High from 1976. And so I never heard of this movie before. Really kind of like I hadn't really heard of it. The only thing I'd ever heard about it was actually from Heathers from 1989, that people compare it, especially the ending, to this movie. And so I was like, oh, okay, but I never saw it stream anywhere or whatever. But I was like, all right, well, fucking let me watch it. And let me tell you something. I really liked it. I gave it a 4. So this movie is about a California high school who has this problem with bullies, pretty much, and a new student engineers acts of revenge on these bullies, and it has like a star-studded cast, man. It has the big stars that you would know from it are Robert Carradine. Robert Carradine is yes, Robert Carradine, not David Carradine. Robert Carradine. Robert Carradine, for those who don't know, is from this movie, but he's also from Body Bags, from John Carpenter. He's in one of the segments in that. But most people my age would know him as Lizzie McGuire's dad, and also one of the Carradine brothers. I think a lot of people would know him from that. He's also in the Revenge of the Nerds and things like that, but I know him as Lizzie McGuire's dad. Anyway, but yes, so he's in this. Kimberly Beck is in this from Friday the 13th Part 4, and all of that. Yeah, it's a fun little movie. These fashions are really great, in my opinion. I like some 70s fashion. And never did I think I would see the dad from Lizzie McGuire's ass in a movie, but here we are, because you do see him like kind of fully naked, really. And then this movie is so wackadoodle, but I'm kind of super here for it. And yeah, this movie's fucking crazy. It's kind of like a violence exploitation movie that's like wrapped up in a weird like TV movie thing. I don't know. It's hard. It's a little hard to explain, but like it's actually, just let it wash over you. You know what I mean? I would at least give it a watch like one time, you know, and see if you like it or not. I kind of loved it. I would probably own it, but like, yeah, this movie is ridiculous and kind of crazy, but I'm here for it. Also, fun little thing with Robert Carradine. He's also the same guy who, because, you know, the writer's strike is going to be ending soon as of this recording, but I think SAG is still on strike as well. But he is the same guy who literally posted a picture of how he got, as a residual, he got $0 of a check. And he literally just posted it on social media, didn't blur out the routing or account numbers or anything like that. And I thought, like, work, go ahead. Because literally it was for $0. He got a residual for Disney. Because it was literally addressed from Disney, like, or whoever the fuck. And it went to his, like, agent or his manager's stuff, which is their address, and it was literally for $0.00. So this is exactly why SAG is, you know, striking and all that, and exactly why that is. But anyway, so because yeah, $0. It costs more money to literally send that out than to give somebody a check for $0. It's fucking crazy. But anyway, but yes, that's Massacre at Central High. I would recommend it if you want to. I mean, I don't know if I don't think it's still on Criterion, unfortunately, but you might be able to find it for the free skis somewhere, so please go ahead and pull up if you want. The next day after that, though, I watched a little movie called Jeffrey from 1995, which had literally been on my list forever because it was one of the movies that I saw on Peacock that I was like, oh my god, I have to watch this because apparently it's a gay movie. And I was like, oh, okay, great. And so I was like, but it was on my list for so goddamn long and I just never watched it. So I was like, all right, let me get around to this. So overall, I did enjoy this movie. I gave it a 3.5 in its heart. There are some parts that maybe be a little dated, but I think it's a fun watch if you liked gay themed movies. I also like the camp sensibility of this film, because there is some camp to it. Christine Baranski, being in this in general already gives it like a 3-star, you know, because I love Christine Baranski. Be on the lookout for another one of her movies coming up later this year on my show. But the cameos alone also give this like a 3 or 3.5 star rating, and I'll get to that in a minute. And then honestly, Patrick Stewart in this movie, I think, does such a good job. So Jeffrey, if you don't already know, so it's about a gay man living in New York City. He has an overwhelming fear of contracting AIDS because he himself was on a little bit of a promiscuous streak before. Anyway, he concludes that being celibate is the only option to protect himself. And as fate would have it, shortly after his declaration of a sex-free existence, he meets a handsome man, Steve Howard, who's played by Michael T. Weiss, his dream man, except for his HIV positive status. And facing this dilemma, Jeffrey turns to his best friend, who is played by Patrick Stewart, and also an outrageous priest, played by Nathan Lane, for guidance. So that's kind of buries the lead a little bit, but like, it's still so fun. I mean, this movie has like Michael T. Weiss's Steve, who is the guy that Jeffrey falls in love with. Jeffrey is Steven Weber. But Michael T. Weiss, for those who may not know, he is Larry from Freeway. Reese Witherspoon's like creepy ass stepdad. So like, you know, that's fun. But like Sigourney Weaver's in this movie. I mean, Nathan Lane, like I said. Brian Batt is in this movie. He plays Patrick Stewart's boyfriend. For those who don't know, Brian Batt is Sal from Mad Men. That's him, which is kind of cool. Yeah, Victor Garber was in this movie for a minute. Olympia Dukakis is in this movie. J. Smith Cameron, for those who don't know, she is the mom from Harriet the Spy, and also she is from First Wives Club, but she's also in, like I said, Harriet the Spy and The Rage Carrie 2. She plays the mom of Rachel in that movie. But she's in a little like kind of cameo. Kathy Najimy's in this movie real quick. Cameron Manheim. May I go on? Like, I mean, it's just like a random assortment. It was a play on in New York, so it does have that kind of feeling to it. But as I've said on this show before, I don't give a shit. So yeah. But Jeffrey, I think, is a fun little movie that if you're into gay movies, if you haven't already seen it, please do yourself a favor and watch it. I think it's a fun time. Anyway, the next day after that, I watched two movies. I watched Turistas from 2006. So this movie is about a group of young backpackers who go to Brazil. Their trip turns sour when a bus accident leaves them marooned on a remote Brazilian rural area that holds an ominous secret. Now, this movie, funny enough, so this movie, I gave it a 3 because I do think it's shot very well. I think it is beautiful to look at. Maybe the story is not like the strongest. It definitely feels kind of like a tacked on, it feels like a tacked on kind of like rip off of something like Hostel, which is saying something because Hostel isn't exactly the best movie either. However, I think I liked this a little bit more than Hostel, really. Like, I actually didn't think it was that bad, like, to be perfectly honest with you. I do like how one of the reviews in this movie, though, I want to read this real quick. So it's by a guy named Caden on Letterboxd. He gave it 2 stars. So he alleges, and I would believe him, that his dad, John Stockwell, who's like, he was an actor back in the day, but he's the director of like Blue Crush. He did this movie. He did Into the Blue. But as an actor, he was in like Top Gun and Christine, and he's been an actor. But apparently Caden said that his dad, John Stockwell, directed this movie. And here are a few things he told me about it if anyone is interested. Number 1, he didn't want to make this in the first place. Number 2, he hates the ending. Number 3, Brazil is really nice and he had a great time there. Number 4, he tried his best to make the movie not antagonizing Brazil and had an almost all Brazilian crew. But it was pretty difficult given what he had to work with. Anyway, this movie isn't that good, and it's going to be real awkward if my dad ever downloads Letterboxd and sees this rating. So thank you, Caden. But yeah, I mean, but I also don't think it's that bad, though. Like, I think it's fine. You know, it's very tension-filled. It's very anxiety-inducing. Olivia Wilde's there. That's fun. Also Melissa George is there. You know, I mean, it's... Yeah, and then also, who's the guy in this? Oh, goddamn. Josh Duhamel. Can you believe that Josh Duhamel was literally the dad in Love, Simon, though? Like, holy shit. Him and Jennifer Garner. Anyway, sorry. But yeah. Yeah, so, and Melissa George is there. Like, I love that. But yeah, so Teresa's wasn't that bad. I don't think it was that bad. But, I mean, your mileage may vary. Anyway, so then the same day, because it was also on Criterion Channel, it's now off of there, but I decided to watch Ghost World from 2001. So this movie, Ghost World, it's about two quirky, cynical teenaged girls who just graduated from high school. They're played by Scarlett Johansson and Thora Birch, respectively. And so they're kind of navigating their life after high school graduation. After they play a prank on an eccentric middle-aged record collector played by Steve Buscemi, one of them befriends him, which causes a rift in the girls' friendship. Now, this movie was perfectly fine. I like how sardonic and acerbic kind of the characters were. It didn't wow me or anything, though. I gave it a 3.5, like I said, and you can dig into all sorts of things about this movie, like what does the ending mean, and like blah 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 blah. For me, like I thought it was fine. I don't think I would. It's on a Criterion, for example, like it has a Criterion release of it. Personally, I don't think I would own it, but you know, that's just me. But I do think it's worth like a watch at least. I think I liked Scarlett Johansson's character. Who was she? She was Rebecca, and then Enid is Thora Birch. But yeah, I mean, like I didn't hate it by any means, but I wasn't wowed by it. I don't think I would own it or anything. But yeah, Ghost World, I had heard about it so much. You would think it'd be my brand or anything, but it was fine. It was very okay. Then I watched Ernest Scared Stupid again because it was free on with ads on YouTube. Anyway, so then after that, I decided to watch a little something called Lyle from 2014. And so if any of you heard last month, I think it was, where I watched Bad Things, which was by Stuart Thorndike. This is actually Stuart Thorndike's first film that she directed. And so this is about Leah, who's played by Gabby Hoffman. Love Gabby Hoffman. Her grief over her toddler's death turns into paranoia when she suspects that her neighbors are part of a satanic cult. So that's pretty much the movie, I guess. Funny enough, so Gabby Hoffman's in this movie, and you know, there isn't much in terms of, plot. It's literally like a 60+ minute movie. It's a little more than an hour. It's really short to watch. Anyway, though, but like, it's very lesbian because they're lesbians. Gabby Hoffman and Ingrid Jungerman play, couple who lose their kid. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty much like the lesbian version of like of Rosemary's Baby a little bit, which is what it was kind of touted as. Similar to how Bad Things is kind of like the lesbian version of The Shining or whatever. And guess what? I also didn't really like this movie a whole lot either. I gave it a 2.5. Again, I thought it was perfectly okay. The most interesting person to me is Gabby Hoffman in this movie, really, because I think she's a great actress. But like, yeah, no, not for me, babes, not for me. However, funny enough, the movie has a Karen is one of the characters in the movie, and she plays the neighbor, like real estate agent lady or whatever. She's an older woman, and she's played by a woman named Rebecca Street. And Rebecca Street, funny enough, I found this out later, is actually the mom in Jawbreaker for Julie, and that was out when she was living in California and being an actress out there, because this movie she was living in New York, because it's all shot in New York. But yeah, I thought that was kind of fun. Yeah, she was in Jawbreaker, so that's cool. But yeah, other than that, I really didn't care for this movie. So it was on Peacock. I think it's still on Peacock. You can find it pretty easily. If you want to watch it, go ahead, my girl, but or my boy or my they or whoever. But yeah, I didn't care for it that much. Anyway, moving on. Then the next day, or actually the 2 days after, I think, because it was on Shudder, I decided to watch a little movie called Night of the Demons from 1988. This is actually part of The Last Drive-In, live from the Jamboree, which a little something about that. So you could obviously watch it on Shudder if you want to. But generally what this was is that there was a drive-in in Pennsylvania somewhere that was in fear of getting closed down and like sanctioned by the state pretty much to get dozed down or whatever. Anyway, but I guess Joe Bob Briggs and Darcy and all them were able to actually make it so that They were able to help raise money to help save this drive-in and all this stuff. And they were able to do that. And so as part of this, what they did was they came to Pennsylvania in 2021 and they did a screening. They did a jamboree, a live jamboree with all their mutant family, if you will. They all came out and they did a screening of this movie, Night of the Demons, which is fun. So that's what I watched. It's on Shudder right now. And you can, if you like that kind of thing. It was cool. Like they had Amelia Kincaid in it and also Linnea Quigley was there as they were the guests of honor at this thing, like, which I thought was cool. But yeah, Night of the Demons. So this is a movie while conducting a seance during a Halloween party. High school seniors unlock the demon that remained locked in the crematorium. So I mean, I gave this movie a 3.5. I really like it personally. I actually own it now. Oh, funny enough. So like I got some Blu-rays. I got another movie that I will talk about in a minute, but I got the Night of the Demons one. I got another movie that are from Scream Factory, and they funny enough have these like kind of backwards like you could have like different covers, which I thought was really cool. So you could have like the newer cover or have the older cover, and it just depends on how you want to do it. I also accidentally ripped my little Blu-ray. I accidentally ripped the plastic, so that was fun. I ripped the plastic so that like thankfully the little slip cover didn't like rip or anything with like the information on the Blu-ray of it. But I had to buy a new Blu-ray case, which is really annoying. But anyway, so yeah, but it is now happily in my collection. Yeah, I love Night of the Demons. I think it's a great movie. I didn't like it at first when I first watched it. I gave it like a 2 or something like that. But I've since come around on it. And I do think it's a really fun movie. The next thing I watched on the 17th of the month, and then also on the 24th, because I will also be covering it on the show, and it's also the other movie that I own from Scream Factory now, is 13 Ghosts from 2001. So this movie, I watched it for podcast purposes, and because it's going off of Max, it was on Max, but I now own it. Now, this movie, if you don't know what 13 Ghosts is, it's about Arthur Criticos and his 2 kids. Arthur is played by Tony Shalhoub, and then his 2 kids are Shannon Elizabeth and some kid named Alec Robert. Anyway, they inherit his uncle's house, played by F. Murray Abraham, and there's a bunch of ghosts. There's 12 ghosts that haunt it that are going to beat your ass, pretty much. That's the basic idea of what this movie is about. This is something I watched a lot as a kid. I had the DVD of this movie. I was obsessed. I loved it. It just shows that I turned out normal and well-adjusted, So there's that. But yeah, I gave it a 4. I gave it a 4 at a heart because listen, this movie is not that great as a plot necessarily. However, and you will hear about, I'm actually in the middle of editing that episode, but let me tell you something. This movie has such good special effects and so wonderful. Oh my God. Like the editing sucks. Like the editing's not great. Please do not maybe watch this if you have like epileptic, tendencies. Cause girl, I don't know. It might be a little hairy, but if you do not have those, watch it. It has good special effects. And that's really it. Like the plot's not that great, but like, it's those effects though for me. I'm sorry. But anyway, so I watched that twice during the month because I also got the Blu-ray of it. So I listened to like the commentary of it and I watched some stuff about the social features. That was kind of fun. But yeah, that's what I watched. Then I think next day after that, because it was on Pluto, I don't think it's on there now. It might have gone away. But I think it'll be coming around though, is The Lost Boys from 1987, which I had actually started to watch at one point before, and then I got a little bored, and then I came back to it. Anyway, so The Lost Boys is by Joel Schumacher. He's the director of it, and this is about a mother, played by Diane Wiest, and her 2 teenage sons, played by Corey Haim and Jason Patrick, respectively. They moved to a seemingly nice and quiet small coastal California town, and they soon find out that it's overrun by bike gangs and vampires. And a couple of teenage friends take it upon themselves to hunt down the vampires that they suspect of a few mysterious murders, and they try to restore peace and calm to their town. So this is from the 80s. It's very, it's very like, new vampire type stuff. I gave it a 3.5 and a little heart. Like it's on my list to maybe own because it has a 4K of it. But I mean, it's a fine movie. I didn't grow up with it or anything, or whatever. But like, I do think it is an interesting take on the vampire lore. You know, I'll be talking a little bit about vampires a little later in October. But I think like this movie in particular, it is cool. I think I like it a little more than like Near Dark a little bit. Like Near Dark's really good, but like I kind of like this movie, and I think at least the first movie like is pretty decent. So do yourself a favor and watch it if you want to. I think it's at least worth a watch if you've never seen it. Then I watched a little movie because I think I might have started this right around the time that I watched Lost Boys, but I watched a little movie on Amazon that a bunch of people have watched called Red, White, and Royal Blue, which came out this year. I started this on a Saturday and I finished it on a Tuesday. That seems about right. So this movie, so it's about an altercation between Alex, the president's son. The president is played by Uma Thurman, the president of the United States, and Britain's Prince Henry, at a royal event, becomes tabloid father. Their long-running feud now threatens to drive a wedge in U.S.-British relations. When the rivals are forced into a staged truce, their icy relationship begins to thaw, and the friction between them sparks something deeper than they ever expected. So it's gays, okay? And so, you know, listen, I gave this a 2.5 star. Listen, this movie could have honestly had about 20 minutes shaved off of it. Maybe I'm just like a cynic, or whatever. I didn't care for this movie a ton, really. And it seems like there's other gays who also maybe don't like it a ton. Maybe there's some who do, and that's fine. I mean, I loved seeing, the president's son's ass. That was fun. And whatever, but like I just partly was it just didn't feel like, I just didn't care, you know what I mean? Plus also like, you can kind of, go down the rabbit hole of all sorts of shit with Amazon and all that kind of stuff. But I will say that I just think like this movie just wasn't for me. It just felt like, I love something like Heartstopper, you know what I mean? You know how much I love Heartstopper. But Heartstopper's a little different for me. This movie, I feel like it just feels like a cis woman's like perspective of like some, even though I know it was written by a queer woman technically, but like, it feels like this kind of like idealized sort of version of what a gay love story is. Do you know what I mean? Especially gay men love story. Like, I don't know. I just was like, I was just kind of like, okay. Like, I just wasn't into it. Say what you will, whatever, but I didn't care that much about it. So take that with a grain of salt. If you want to watch it, go ahead. But it wasn't anything right home out for me. Then a couple days after that, though, because it was on Tubi. It was actually on HBO before, but it was on Tubi. I don't know where it's going to end up now, but okay. I decided to watch The Color Purple from 1985. So anybody who doesn't know what The Color Purple is about, it's pretty much about a girl named Celie, who in the movie is played by a young lady. Give me one moment. I'm going to get her name. You have Desiree Jackson plays her young, and then Whoopi Goldberg plays her as like a young adult and then an adult. But this is about Celie. She grows up in the South. She is from pretty much like Louisiana, like Georgia area or something, back in the 1900s, pretty much, where, women and black women in particular were not treated the best, obviously. So she had to deal with abuse and bigotry. She was pretty much married off to this guy, Mister, who's played by Danny Glover. It's so much. It was directed by Steven Spielberg. I thought this movie, I loved it. It was for me. One of my coworkers, funny enough, she loves The Color Purple, and she likes the musical too. And the musical's coming out later this year. So, but this movie was so bomb. I mean, it was so good. I really liked it. I just think it's so worth the time. Is it a little long? Yes, but I do think like overall actually, I'm fine with the length of it. Like, I'm fine with the length of the movie, and also I just think this movie is so captivating, and I'm interested. I liked it a lot. So, yeah, go watch The Color Purple if you haven't already done so. I think it's really decent and really good, and I really enjoyed myself with it. And then same day, I decided to watch a little movie that was on Tubi. I think I might have left. I actually, again, I started this movie at one point, and then I fell off of it, and then I came back to it. So, this is a little movie called Happy Birthday to Me, which from 1981. This is about Virginia, played by Melissa Sue Anderson from Little House on the Prairie. She is proud that she belongs with a clique, so the best students at a private school, but before her 18th birthday, a gruesome set of murders take place, and her friends are the only ones who are falling prey. Could it be her? She suffers from blackouts due to a freak accident that happened to her and her mom, and we soon find out the truth behind her accident and what's going on. So yeah, this movie is a 3.5 for me. It's early 80s horror, so that's kind of fun for what it is, it's Canadian. Very, very Canadian. You'll hear me talk about a little bit about this movie in a later episode I'm going to do in the month. You'll see. But this movie actually has an interesting relationship with the series Goosebumps, which is kind of fun. Which I'll let you I'll let you hear about that later on. But yeah, so. Yeah, Happy Birthday to Me. I think it was pretty fun. It's ridiculous at the end, which actually came from changes that were made. I don't think it was actually the end of this movie. I think was tacked on. Honestly, I don't think it was the original ending. But yeah, so that's what I watched. And then I have two more to kind of focus on. So I decided to watch a little movie called Ginger Snaps from 2000 because it was also on High School Horror as well. I think it's off of there now, but it's always on Shudder. You can always find it on Tubi. So yeah, if you don't know what Ginger Snaps is, so it's about it's a story of two outcast sisters played by Catherine Isabel and Emily Perkins, Ginger and Bridget. They live in Bailey Downs, which is a little Canadian suburban town. On the night of Ginger's first period, she is savagely attacked by a werewolf, pretty much, and her wounds miraculously heal, but something is not quite right. So it's pretty much a werewolf movie. I do want to do an episode on this movie at some point. I don't know when I'm going to get around to it, but I want to so bad. Yeah, I was talking to somebody about this movie, and they said how their dad actually liked it a lot. It liked this in the second movie, which if you don't already know, I watched the second movie already. I've seen this movie before, so I just watched it again, but I watched the second one a couple months ago, which is actually pretty decent, and I have on my list to watch the third one, so I'll get around to it. But I love Ginger Snaps. I think if you have never seen it, please do yourself a favor and watch it. It's so interesting. It has that dark comedy to it. It feels like a really fucked up like Goosebumps episode, kind of, sort of, but like it's just really good to me at least. I do want to own it. I do want to get around to owning it. So I really enjoyed it for myself. And I think anybody else would also like it too. Because yeah, Ginger Snaps is just awesome, obviously. And then the last movie that I watched in the month, pretty much because I'm going to be doing October, obviously, starting today when you hear this. But I watched a little movie called Sydney White from 2007. This is a movie. This is an Amanda Bynes movie. This movie is about a college student, and it's a modern retelling of Snow White set against students in their freshman year of college in the Greek system. So that's like putting it mildly. So pretty much Amanda Bynes plays Sydney White, who is Snow White, and she gets kicked out of a sorority pretty much. Sarah Paxton is in it as like the bitch head of the sorority, and she's a student council president. And so this movie is just so, but then Sydney White comes across these like guys who live in this place called the Vortex. And they're all kind of like the archetypal, dwarf characters in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Yeah, and this movie is so interesting. I gave it a 3. There's people who hate this movie, and if you look at the Letterboxd reviews, girl, they're not that good. However, I think this movie actually has something going for it. I'm a simple person. I like Amanda Bynes, so like I of course like it, but like I also think this movie is like really decent. I like Sydney White. I think she's a great character, and I enjoy her. I also like how this movie has like a socialist undertone to it, because pretty much like Sydney and is pretty much saying like fuck the oligarchy and fuck like the system pretty much, which I thought was so cool. And I think there's other folks who like this movie for maybe it's not the best film overall, but the fact that there is this like socialist message under it, the fact that I think Sydney is actually a fairly likable character. This gives me House Bunny vibes, like hardcore. So if you're into the House Bunny, I think you should check this movie out as well. Again, doesn't have our queen Anna Faris in it, obviously, but I do think it's worth a watch. And it was on HBO Max. It was on Max. So why the hell not? Like, I think you should definitely do yourself a favor and watch it. 'Cause I think it's super fun for what it is, for sure. And that's pretty much what I watched in the month of September. So hope you enjoyed all that. And, it's what I watched. I would say most of the things, maybe give them a watch if you want to. And also in the meantime, near the end of the month as well, I decided to do myself a little favor. And I signed up for Audible for like a minute, and then I used a credit to go buy this book on Audible. So it's the audiobook version. But I decided to start reading or listening to Yours Cruelly, Elvira, which is the memoir for Elvira, Cassandra Peterson. And I have just started listening to that, and so I'll finish it in the next few days probably. It's a 10-hour book. It's a 10-hour listen, so it's quite a bit to take on, but I think it's so good. For what I've heard, I'm about... What chapter am I on? Let me see real quick. I believe I am on chapter 12, actually. She talks about how she lived in Rome for a while, and her life is just so interesting. I love Elvira, obviously. Like, oh my God, she's fucking great. But like, her life is just so fascinating, and I think like it's solidified to me just that I really like her so much, but also like it solidifies that I want more Elvira in my life. You know what I mean? Like, she would definitely be somebody, if I went to a horror convention and if she was there, I would absolutely want to meet her. Like, I mean, oh my God, like she is just this like beautiful, spooky aunt in my head, you know what I mean? And I love her for that. So I mean, she's kind of like a glamour clown, if you will, not in a bad way. I'm just saying, like, she is this kind of like, silly person. She's there, and she's like she's there to make people laugh. She's a comedian at the end of the day, so I love that. But yeah, that's what I watched in September. So for October, I have some fun things coming up. Of course, I have my regular episodes coming out, which I already kind of teased what I'm going to be doing as well. But, you'll look forward to that if you listen to these little bite-sized things. But I also plan on, so you'll see this on the Instagrams and all that stuff. I plan to do... I'm crazy, but I think I might do... 2 different watch-alongs. So the Horror Queers generally always have their watch-along for the month. So every day they post a different category of horror movie to watch and all that stuff. So I'll be participating in that, and I'll be posting on social media what I'm watching and things like that. But I also want to do a little watch-along with Haunted Hippie, funny enough, Kylie from YouTube, and she's on Letterboxd and all that. Go check out her channel, Haunted Hippie, if you haven't done so already. She's a great content creator. She is a up and coming filmmaker. She has some shorts out there, and she has a great YouTube channel where she talks about like what she watches in the month. She does deep dives of like directors and films. She does original remake videos that compare the 2 movies, that the original and the remake. She's really cool content. So please go follow her on social media and her YouTube and all that. But she has a watch along that she's doing. And so I might actually do that one as well. So that'll be, I have a whole list of the categories that she is going to do. And she talked about what she's going to be watching this month. But yeah, I am super interested to do again, that's a lot of movies to watch. So you're going to have a big old episode in October, I'm sure, to hear about what I watched. But yeah, so that'll be fun. And then, of course, just in general, just enjoying the spookiness, and all that. But if you like what you hear, please, give the rest of my back catalog a listen. I thank you so much for listening today, and I will see you next month for October, where I'll talk about what I watched in the month of the spook. So thank you so much for listening, and take care.